All right, here we go. Welcome to MK True Crime. My parents named me Arthur Aidala. I am a New York City trial attorney, and I'm one of the lawyers here at Aidala, Fortuna, and Kamins. And I am so excited to be joined by these two unbelievable guests talking about grandmother Donna Adelson, who was sentenced to life in prison this week for her role in the murder of her son-in-law. Horrible. We'll discuss what she had to say to the judge at her sentencing. And here in New York, one of our favorites, former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez, speaks out after being released from the hospital following his bizarre attack on an elderly truck driver. And the city of Philadelphia has once again ruled that Ellen Greenberg's cause of death in 2011 was a suicide. Ready for this, folks? She was stabbed over 20 times, including in the back. We'll bring you those updates and more. But what I'm most excited about is the two people I'm about to spend the next time with. Fellow MK True Crime contributors, David Aronberg. Now, folks, there are trademarks and then there are trademarks. And here is the trademark for Dave. He is the, with a capital THE, Florida lawman. Now, why can he claim such a title? Because he's the former state attorney for Palm Beach County, one of the poorest counties in the United States of America in Florida. And he is the managing partner of David Aronberg Law. And those of you who have ever watched television lately, and he wants to know anything about the law, you want to hear some brilliant commentary, you just know there's one place to look, and that is to my dear friend for many years now, Jonna Spilbor. She's a criminal defense attorney. She's the founding attorney at Jonna Spilbor Law, and she is one of my favorite lawyers on the planet Earth. All right, we have to start with Donna Adelson. On Monday, Judge Everett sentenced her to life in prison plus an additional 30 years on the conspiracy and solicitation charges. David, since you have such a personal connection to this case, I'm going to let you take the lead.
Good to be with you, Art and Jonna. Yes, Danny Markell, the victim of the case, was a friend of mine, and she, meaning Donna Adelson, had the temerity to bring up his name, saying that Danny believed in justice and he would be appalled by what went on in my trial. He would be so upset at the lack of due process and how people lied and all this. I'm paraphrasing, but it was so disgusting, as if the victim's family has not suffered enough. Then to hear this unrepentant, vile individual who pulled the strings and put this whole thing in motion, how she continues to maintain her innocence and showed total lack of remorse, and the judge called her out on it. In fact, there's a SOT on it, but I'll leave it to you, Art, to call out the SOTs. And then she tried to say that Danny would be on her side. Also, she praised Danny as a loving father and how she loved him. Meanwhile, she hated Danny. She hated him so much she could never even say his name. The fact that she even calls him Danny, that's what his friends called him. She was not his friend. She was someone who called him Gibbers. In fact, in Wendy's phone, he didn't come up as Danny. He came up as Gibbers. If you're wondering what Gibbers is, it's like some made-up name that combines, I think, like Jewish and hillbilly or cowboy or something stupid. And so the chickens have come home to roost on this one. She is going to be facing the rest of her life in prison. She's going to prison until she dies. Her son is in prison until he dies. And next, we anticipate, will be Wendi, the daughter, the ex-wife.
So, John, before we go to you, let's just listen to a little bit of what was said in court, because I find that stuff kind of interesting. So we'll start with the very first sound on tape, number one.
On count one of the indictment for first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole or release, pursuant to sections 782.04 and 775.082 sub 1 sub A Florida statutes. On count two of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to 30 years in the Department of Corrections that will run consecutive to count one. The court will also sentence you to 30 years in the Department of Corrections on count three. Counts 2 and 3 are to run concurrent with each other, but consecutive to count one.
So, Johnny, could you explain to folks why a judge would do that, why he would continuously sentence you? You know, most folks would be like, she's already going to die in prison. What's with those extra years? Tell folks why judges do that, please.
So there are a few reasons. Sometimes it's done because even though you might have crimes that are related, they might not happen at the same time. Therefore, a judge isn't going to run them what we call concurrently. A judge can run them consecutively. Plus, it's also from a prosecution standpoint, it could be helpful in the event that she does intend to appeal. So if anything goes south from a prosecution standpoint, some of the sentence might still stand. But she's, what is she, guys? She's 75. She's in that neighborhood. No matter what, I don't think she's going to see the light of day ever again outside of a prison walls. But I do want us to get to, I want to talk about, and we can run another SOP before we get there. I do want to talk about her maintaining her innocence, because she did get to speak at the sentencing, and defendants are allowed to speak at sentencing. She maintained her innocence, and she tried to sort of retry the case. And I want to talk about her right to do that. Yeah, let's do that.
We're going to play that. I'm going to talk, but I just want to mention, it was the second murder case I did as a defense attorney. The client was convicted of murder and of the possession of a gun. And the murder, he got, I think, 22 to life, and then the possession of gun was like 5. And on appeal, the whole murder conviction was thrown out. The whole case was thrown out. It wasn't sent back, as 90% cases are, to be retried. So the whole case was thrown out, said it never should have been brought. And so then he wound up only doing the 5 years. So as she usually is, Ms. Spilbor is correct. Prosecutors like when judges do that. It's almost like a safety net in case by some reason, I doubt that's going to happen here, the top count is vacated by the court. They still have the lower sentence. So once again, Ms. Spilbor is correct. This woman will never see the light of day. Let's hear what Donna had to say. Let's go with SOT 2, please.
My son-in-law, Dan Markell, was a fine and decent man. He was well educated and passionate about his career. He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father. And he wasn't just being followed, he was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. Cruel, cold-hearted people took him from all of us who loved him. My heart was broken when Danny died.
Now, that's not going to get her in trouble. But Dave, first of all, you've been on the other side of the table. How does it feel from a prosecutorial standpoint when after somebody is convicted of killing a human being, you hear them, grieving over the loss of the person who a jury has just said you were involved in taking them away from the planet Earth?
She did that in her trial. She and her defense lawyer praised Danny, and they said what a tragedy it was. Well, who did this? Obviously, these hitmen didn't pay for themselves. Someone had to hire them, these hitmen who had no connection to Danny Markell, and they were hired by Donna Adelson and her son, Charlie Adelson, with a middle person in there, Katie McManua. So for her now to cry crocodile tears, and by the way, even though she seemed to be crying, I didn't see any waterworks. I didn't see it there. I didn't see it at her trial. I didn't see it at her sentencing. It looks like she is someone who is more putting on a show. In fact, that's what she told her daughter, Wendi, put on a show. And that's what she tried when she wanted Wendi to play the damsel in distress before the court so that the court would rule her way instead of Danny's way. So this is a family that orchestrated this. And as far as whether Wendi will be next or Harvey, and there's a SOT of Harvey speaking, who is Donna's husband, I thought, and I do think that Wendi will be next. I'm not sure about Harvey, but I'll leave you with this. I think that Harvey's comments were the most appalling of them all. Donna's were terrible. She took no responsibility. She showed no remorse, and the judge called her out on that, and we can discuss that. But when Dave, you show Harvey, that's the worst.
All right, we're going to do it all. So let's start with Donna at SOT 3. Let's hear what she has to say about being the grandma mastermind. Go ahead, roll it.
It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder. In both of Catherine Magbanua's trials, the state claimed she was the mastermind behind Danny's murder. In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind. And now in my trial, they claimed that I, this grandma, was the mastermind behind the murder. I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it.
She's not really saying, well, I don't know. Jonna, what is she really saying?
All right,
She
but
eventually gets cut off by the judge, but go ahead.
all right, but hold on a minute. This is what's significant, in my opinion. We watched the trial, in real time. I believe there was ample evidence to prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That said, guys, and we all experience this with our criminal defendants, I don't think it should be held against any defendant, including this grandma. When you are found guilty by a jury and you show up for sentencing and you maintain your innocence and you say to the judge, I didn't do it, and the jury got it wrong and you got it wrong, and then you're all out of order, you're out of order. And for a judge to chastise you for maintaining your innocence is wrong, especially when you know that 9 times out of 10, and in this case, I believe it's happening, she is going to appeal. So why do we expect defendants who put their life in 12 people's hands to suddenly come and say, you know what, that whole, month-long trial I put everybody through and all that, yeah, you know what, I did it. Why do we expect that to happen? It shouldn't happen, and I don't blame her for maintaining her innocence. I don't think she is innocent, but she has the right to maintain that position.
Let's hear what the judge has to say. Let's go to SOT 4 because he kind of reprimands her.
Mm-hmm. Where is the evidence prior to the murder? The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue, Mrs. Adelson, as it relates to this statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just giving Mrs. Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
Now, Dave, the reason why that's kind of a little bit of malarkey by the judge, isn't the judge under this law, isn't he obligated to give her life?
On the main murder count, but on the other counts, he could have departed to go below the 30 years. That's what this hearing was about. This sentencing was not about the life. That was cooked. That was in there. It was about the other 2 counts. And so I was wondering, why did Donna Adelson do what she did? Why did she not only express no remorse? And I get what Jonna says. She doesn't have to say, I did it. But then when she just rips into the court and to the jurors, and in fact, Harvey even says that the judge was biased, but we'll get to that. But when she went further than she needed to and attacked the evidence, which is inappropriate for this kind of hearing. This is not about retrying the case. This is about sentencing. And when she did that, I was like, why would she do that knowing that the judge will give her the maximum as she continues to provoke him and show no remorse? And then I realized what this was about, and that is she was playing to an audience of 2, Benjamin and Lincoln, her 2 grandkids who mean the world to her. The reason why she did this was to get custody of them. She wants this on the record. She wants them to hear her one last time profess her innocence to the world. She wants that to be in their heads. As they approach their later teenage years, she wants them to believe that she had nothing to do with this. That's the only reason I could explain why she decided to knowingly go in there, insult the court, insult the judge, and get the maximum sentence.
Well, that makes, that actually makes sense. Did we play SOT 5?
Innocent woman convicted of this terrible crime without evidence. Danny was a brilliant legal scholar. He would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are 2 crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit. As I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
All right, Dave, before I go to you, because I'm sure you have a lot to say, I just want to ask Jonna, if she was your client and you know she's got to get life, would you stop her from, because I agree with Dave, she's probably trying to make a speech to her grandchildren or anyone out there. Would you stop your client, or would you be like, listen, this is your last time to be heard. You say whatever you need to say that's going to make you spend the rest of your life in prison, that much more, reasonable for you.
So that you die happy, behind
not that happy, but maybe satisfied you got your last word out.
Look, you guys, she had absolutely nothing to lose by saying absolutely nothing. Even if whether the judge said, you know what, you're right, I'm only going to give you a couple of years when I could give you that. Like, it's nothing to lose, number one. She didn't testify at trial, so she didn't get any of this out. She's being a little bit dramatic. Frankly, she probably could have been, if it were me, I'd be like, you're all losers. You all suck. The jury was dumb. Like, I'd really let it all fly. But, she's trying to do it in her grandmotherly way. And I can't help but be reminded, and again, she might actually believe she's innocent, you guys. She might actually believe that at this point. If I had a nickel, though, for every client who said, I've never even gotten a parking ticket, I'd be retired. I wouldn't even be here right now. But, because they all say that. And that falls flat.
That is so, folks who are watching this right now, what she said is so true. Yeah. I cannot count how many times people have told me, I never got a speeding ticket. I don't even double park. Mm-hmm. So what was that kilo of cocaine doing sitting in the car?
Well,
I've been talking a lot about Riverbend Ranch lately because I love their steaks. Those Riverbend Ranch steaks are something else. Riverbend Ranch has taken Black Angus beef to a whole new level. Did you recently hear RFKJ, head of the Maha movement, saying really all he eats is red meat and fermented products? Hello, Riverbend Ranch has got you covered. For the last 35 years, Riverbend Ranch has been creating a very elite Angus herd by using ultrasound to select genetically superior cattle with a focus on flavor and tenderness. When you buy from Riverbend Ranch, you're not only supporting the 64 cowboys and cowgirls and their families who work on the ranch, but you're also supporting over 260 other U.S. ranches and the hundreds of American families who work on them. It is born in the USA, raised in the USA, and processed in the USA. It is aged to perfection for 21 days and shipped directly from the ranch to your home. This is not your average Black Angus beef, so order from riverbendranch.com. Use the promo code Megyn for $20 off your first order, and let me know what you think. riverbendranch.com, promo code Megyn.
Dave, before we come to you, let's hear what Harvey said, because I know that upset you as well.
Yeah.
Knowing the victim here as well as you did. Let's play shot number 6.
She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong. Donna has always been a loving and caring wife, and is innocent of the charges. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided news pieces and social media.
Dr. Ms. Fulford, this has nothing to do with the character of the defendant or relates to the sentencing.
May I just 1 moment, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Absolutely disgraceful.
So, David, first of all, let me just ask you from a procedural point of view. because here it's not a given in the state of New York that anyone could speak on the defendant's behalf. You have to ask permission. Some judges allow it, other judges don't. Just tell me, educate me. How does it work in Florida?
The judge could have cut him off. The judge could have stopped him.
Does the judge
And-
have to allow them to speak, or is there, like, what's the, as they said, in New York, you have to write a letter ahead of time as a defendant. Can, this one speak, that one speak, and the judge can say, no, no, I just need to hear from counsel and the defendant. So I'm just curious how it works in your hometown.
It's in the judge's discretion, but the judge also is aware that an appellate court is watching and could say, no, you have to allow the defendant to say something, and the defendant's family didn't say something. So he's going to give in to allowing some members of the family to speak just to make sure everything is fair. But it's up to the discretion of the judge. And he could have cut Harvey off before he even began. And as soon as he insulted the judge by saying that you're biased, I mean, my gosh, he allowed him to continue. And then the Harvey spoke for like 30 more seconds and then stopped, even though I had several pages of notes. And that's because the lawyer, I think, said enough. But shame on the lawyers here, because the lawyers should have reviewed Harvey's comments and Donna's comments in advance and see, no, this is inappropriate. This is going to hurt you. This is bad. And then Donna, after Harvey issued that broadside, should have just allowed him to do it and played the part of good cop, bad cop. But instead, she went in all bad cop. She took her heel persona and just doubled down on it. And it's not going to help her on appeal. It's not going to help her in the court of public opinion. But as I said, perhaps it helps her now in the present with her grandkids. But at some point, they're going to get old enough where they're going to know the truth.
Donna, would you, but when you have a defendant who's going to speak, do you write your remarks? Do you have them write it and you edit it? How do you, show us a little bit how the sausage is made behind the scenes.
Yeah. So it completely depends on whether there is an opportunity to have the words make a difference, to be honest with you. And if the words are going to make a difference, then rarely do I want a client to formulate them all on their own. But if they're not going to make a difference and they just want to speak from the heart, I let them do it. I would have done the same thing that this defense attorney was doing for both of these. For Harvey and Donna, like nothing they were going to say was going to change any minds. They started talking motion stuff, and I'm sure all the motions, post-trial motions, had been made. They fell flat. So just let these two old people talk, because Donna's going away for life, and the next time that she's going to be outside of a prison, it's going to be in a box. I hate to say it, but that's the case. So let them speak their piece.
David, what's next? She's done. Her son is done. Now there's no name Wendi floating around out there. Fill us in.
I think that Wendi will be indicted by Thanksgiving. That's my prediction. I don't have any inside information, but the jury foreperson in this case came out and said on social media right after the verdict that, yes, of course, Wendi was involved. She will be charged in her view. And remember, this case wasn't about Wendi. It was about Donna. So if the jury foreperson is saying, yeah, Wendy's guilty too, when you only saw like a small part of the evidence against Wendi in court, then I think her goose is cooked. I think they're going to indict her, but I've been wrong before, so we'll see.
Okay. David, I really just want to go out of my way. I don't know if we've ever covered a case here. I know I don't believe I've ever covered a case where one of the participants knew anyone involved, especially the victim. And, I just want to express my condolences.
Thank you, Art. And thank you, Jonna. This is an important discussion because, Danny really was a believer in justice, and he used to debate people all the time. He would have wanted due process, a fair trial, and that's what these defendants got. And so for Donna to go ahead and say that Dan would be on her side is really appalling. And also the other part of Harvey's comments, which we didn't see in that clip, was when Harvey attacked Danny's parents. I mean, as if they haven't been through enough. For Harvey to attack the parents of the victim and call them liars is just like, haven't you hurt them enough? And so I don't know if Harvey's ever going to be charged with this crime, but I told you about my thoughts about his daughter, Wendi. So I don't think this is over yet.
So, I'm not commenting on this particular case, but I think, I'll speak for Jonna and I. We've both been involved in cases where justice wasn't done, and maybe your buddy Dan would not have been proud of what took place in courtrooms. I mean, you know too, David, there are judges who are straight down the middle and straight shooters, and there are other judges who have their thumb on the scale. Typically, it's for the prosecutor, but there are times when it's for the defense attorney. You followed this case much closer than we did. You feel comfortable with everything that took place here, procedurally speaking, just from a criminal justice point of view?
I do. I think she's going to lean in on the bias of the judge on appeal. And that's why when I mentioned about the judge indulging these the statements by the defendant's friends and family, I think that the lawyers of the defense wanted the judge to start cutting people off, wanted the judge to say, I'm offended by the fact you called me biased. And so that's why I think they're going to lean into that on appeal. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I thought Judge Everett did an excellent job. I think he ran a tight ship, and I think he delivered justice.
All right, you get the last word. We're going to take a quick break. I am going to come back. I want to sneak in a little bit something about Mark Sanchez, and then we got to talk about this Philadelphia woman's bizarre death that was ruled a suicide years ago, but now it's been ruled a suicide for the second time after a deeper investigation, allegedly. We'll bring you the latest on that because there was some funky facts. Now, if you have any questions or comments, you know what? You can contact us. We're very approachable. We're very reachable. Look at Jonna. She's beautiful. Just go right up to her and say hello. Or you could email mktruecrime at the Devil May Care Media, not the devil. See, when you see Jonna and the Devil May Care, it all ties up in my brain. It gets me all confused.
Oh, Arthur.
I'm sorry. mktruecrime at devilmaycaremedia.com. mktruecrime at devilmaycaremedia.com. We would love to hear from you, and especially tell Spilbor to ditch the glasses. In other words, I need the glasses to cover up some of the ugliness, but her face is so pretty, and without the glasses, you get to see it all. And the brains and the intelligence just comes flowing through, right, kid?
Yeah, email me at jonna@suckingupwillgetyoueverywhere.com.
All right, folks, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
I want to talk to you about Jevity. In my career, I've learned that information is everything, and the same, of course, applies to our health. Having the right info makes all the difference. That is where Jevity comes in. It's not just another health app. It's a longevity and health optimization platform that uses your health data to build custom care plans for your unique needs. Jevity creates personalized supplement packs based on your specific blood work, and they provide ongoing guidance to you. No more fragmented healthcare or wasting money on random supplements hoping something works. This platform analyzes essential biomarkers, giving you comprehensive health data, all accessible from home. So go to Jevity.com/Megyn and get 20% off with code Megyn. That's GoJevity.com/Megyn. All right, you got to put the word go first. Go, GEVITI.com/Megyn. In a world of one-size-fits-all solutions, Jevity brings clarity, personalization, and scientific precision to your wellness. This is not just healthcare. It is healthcare reimagined with you in mind.
All right, Arthur here, back with Jonna and Dave. And the city of Philadelphia reviewed the death of Ellen Greenberg in 2011 for a second time to determine what the cause of death was: suicide, homicide, should someone be charged? Before we get there, though, I want to touch on what happened to Mark Sanchez. I mean, I've seen the video. Have you guys seen the video? There's a video we could show, right? Well, and we could just talk over it, of the Sanchez before and after the attack, like strolling around. There he is. Oh, yeah, he's doing wind sprints, right? He's like, I mean, I heard you guys in the commercial break here talking about your CrossFit, Natasha and David. I don't even know how to spell CrossFit, let alone do CrossFit. So I guess he's out drinking and he decides he's going to exercise at the same time. And yeah, there he is. Yeah, let me go running with a couple of beers in my belly. Dave, is this what you do? Is this your idea of being CrossFit? You're drinking with one hand and like running with the other? Is that how it works?
That's my typical Tuesday.
Okay. So then the fight takes place and you see Sanchez is leaving and he's holding his side and he's clearly injured. And let's just play what he says when he first comes out. That's shot number 7 for Mark Sanchez.
Is there anything you want to say to the people of Indianapolis?
Right now I'm just focused on my recovery. And I just wanted to thank the first responders Eskenazi Hospital. Watch how you're going to hit some. Marion County Sheriff and the Indianapolis Police Department, Metro PD. But I'm focused on my recovery, and I want to see my wife. I want to see my son, my 2 baby girls. There'll be a day to answer all these questions, and unfortunately, today's not that day.
Okay, Jonna, that is your client. What say you?
Well, okay. You guys are going to have to tell me if I've missed something, because I've reviewed this case. And why are we so convinced that Mark Sanchez is the perp here? Because from what I understand, they're both injured. They both get stabbed. Only one of them gets arrested. Now, Arthur, I know you have a cadre of famous clients, including athletes, famous athletes. I mean, why do we assume that this man, just because he's the younger man, is the one who started this fight? Why aren't they both arrested, or none of them arrested? Did I miss the memo?
Before I defer to the prosecutor, the way it often works, Ms. Spilbor here, is like the first to 911, usually it becomes the victim, or
Not
the one
always.
who gets, not always, but I said usually, Your Honor. And also it's the one who gets the beat more, who's the most injured. And here, look, when I got sent the picture of the guy that you could see there, the guy, yes, that picture, I thought it was AI. I thought, because the picture came out relatively quickly. I go, no, that's not true. They just had a little fist fight. You look at that picture, it looks like a lot more than that. Now, there's a big age difference. There's a big, like our friend David, Mark Sanchez is in great physical shape. He's very intimidating. And he clearly looks like he beat the hell out of this guy. So Mark, listen to me. So Dave, you tell me, why is, answer Jonna's question. Why is Sanchez the only one charged here?
Because it looks like he was the aggressor. He's the one who came upon this individual who was working. It was late at night. He was out there doing his job, collecting oil from restaurants, and you had Sanchez.
Grease. I think it was grease.
Grease, oil, grease. Is that
Grease
a big
collector?
Well, for us Italians, that makes a big difference between oil and grease. But we'll talk about that in another episode.
Fair enough. He's collecting grease, doing his job. He's a working man, and you have this wealthy celebrity who's a big, imposing guy, young, good-looking, built, and he's getting in his face because he's drunk or on whatever. And the guy, the victim here, is elderly, and both of them get wounded very badly. And apparently the victim pepper sprayed Sanchez, but that didn't stop him. And then you saw the slashing began. It was just an awful incident. But the police, because of the age of the victim and because of determining who started it, decided this was Mark Sanchez's fault. And in the court of public opinion, it's not going well for him either. I know that his ex-wife is now out there saying, you see, that's the guy who's fooled you all.
Please.
How does that feel, Jonna? Come on, Spilbor, let's hear it. There's the wife saying, I'm not surprised. I hate to say this, but I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I know. And just sit down, please, because that is helpful.
How do you know she was standing up? Hold on. How do you know she was standing up?
She's probably looking for her 15 minutes of fame. He's her baby daddy. She's got an axe to grind. Maybe she wants to up the child support. I'm still stuck with, we don't know what exactly happened to spark this. And if somebody pepper sprays me, I'm probably gonna, fight back. There's just something here, you guys. I can't stop.
But Jonna, how do you feel about the fact that he doesn't say coming out of the hospital something along the lines of, and I hope everybody who's involved in this, has a speedy recovery or something along those lines?
Why doesn't he say that? Because he's got to say as little as possible. Why? He's the deep pocket here. He's going to have, probably already has a civil lawsuit filed.
No, they said they filed a lawsuit the next day. I'm
sure they did. He should be seen and not heard at this point. And you know that, Arthur, from all the famous muckety mucks that you represent on a daily basis. Just shut up. You're not going to do yourself any favors.
I've never had a grease truck guy. I've had an oil truck guy, but never a grease truck guy. This is new territory for me. All right, listen, the Mark Sanchez case will be on for a while. He does have some young, beautiful children. I'm glad he's focused on him recovering and he wants to see his kids. But I think, John, I agree with you at this point. You know what the nicest part of the video was? I'm being sincere. when he tells the reporter, be careful, you're about to trip over something. I would use that to see what a thoughtful guy he is when he's sober. Because I think there's a lot of evidence that's going to be pointed out that he was not sober.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if Ellen Greenberg was sober or not when she decided to stab herself 20 times. But family members and friends, they understandably so cannot accept the fact that she would have caused such damage and such harm to herself. So initially, this was ruled a homicide. Then it was ruled a suicide, and there was no real deep investigation done. These years later, after the family I think they got 167,000 signatures on a petition to reopen the case. They hired all kinds of experts, national experts, talking about that it couldn't have been a suicide. It was reopened, and Mr. Prosecutor, the Florida lawman, if I got that right,
TM.
I'm not sure.
Trademark.
TM. What are your thoughts, sir?
It's a tough one because I'm trying to figure out why the authorities would cover anything up. Now, I admit this doesn't look good. I mean, I don't know how you can stab yourself so many times from behind, even if you were suicidal, how that even works. And there have been the medical examiner initially ruled it a homicide and then switched to say it's a suicide, and now is saying, no, it's a homicide. And the person who just came out to say it's a suicide was someone that I don't think anyone, the family, had never heard of. This was someone new who they're not familiar with, someone within the medical examiner's office, and I'm not familiar with this person either. And it's going before a court, and so hopefully there can be some sort of investigation that's different than what happened already, because until that happens, there'll never be closure. There's still too many unanswered questions. It's interesting, the family said just recently that they don't even think necessarily that the ex-fiance did it, that it was perhaps someone else. But then that opens up a question, like, who else could it be? It doesn't point to anyone else. It's either the person, her significant other who found the body, who may or may not have had a combustible relationship with the victim, or it was a suicide. I don't think there's a third party who is even in the mix here. So this thing is getting a little off the rails here, and I think only perhaps another investigation, a full one, that's more independent than the people that the family is suing. I think it should be done independently, and let's get some answers.
But what a beautiful couple that picture was that just popped up. And obviously this is a tragedy. Either way you look at it. Jonna, did you see that graphic of where the stab wounds were?
Yeah.
Back of her neck and the top of her neck. Like, I think the original medical examiner said, well, she could do it. Like, I guess it's possible at her age. She's limber enough. At my age, I can't even put on my socks. But at her age, I guess, you could reach behind your neck and stab yourself in the back of the neck. Jonna Spilbor, using your New York Poughkeepsie common sense. What are your thoughts?
I call bullshit. Just like when we talked about this the last time. It is physically
harsh
impossible.
Language.
It is physically impossible to kill yourself the way they are claiming she did. First of all, the final knife mark, I guess the knife was found in her heart, you guys. Okay, so what does that mean? That means she had to reach behind herself, 10 times, 11 times, stab herself in the back of the neck, in the back of the head. Oh, and then a few more in the front. And then, I have the energy. I haven't lost too much blood. Let me plunge this knife into my heart as my final farewell. It just can't happen. Who are they covering up for? At the very least, they should say it's a homicide. And if they can't figure out who the perp is, okay. But geez Louise, this is not a suicide.
Yeah, I want to take a break. Jonna, could you just tell us from your mouth, how do you really feel? Like, tell us how you feel about that, because I'm not sure.
You guys kind of feel the same way.
I mean, I didn't really feel it like you believed what you were saying right there. But if you think about it, David, you've been, in the course of your career as a storied prosecutor, you've seen a lot of causes of death. Wouldn't you agree that this is not like someone, they want to kill themselves? You don't really hear about suicide by, a knife in the back of their neck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there were more injuries that were discovered, and they think, well, maybe it was the medical examiner through the investigation that caused some of those wounds that cannot be explained, because obviously there's some wounds that are impossible after you're dead to accomplish. So the whole thing raises so many questions. To me, as a former prosecutor, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. In general, I don't like cover-ups in general, especially now where there are no secrets. So I keep asking, why are they trying to cover it up? Who are they covering up for? And I still don't have those answers. So that leads me to say, well, maybe it was a suicide all along. But then I see the evidence that showed all these wounds. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? The fact that the door was locked from the inside is also perplexing. So and there's no DNA, by the way, of the fiance found on the knife.
That's a big piece of the puzzle.
That's a problem.
That's a big piece of the puzzle. And that's what I believe either the DA's office or law enforcement said, listen, this guy's DNA is not here. Always the significant other is usually the first suspect. I don't know. This is another one to be continued. We're going to take a quick break. I think we're going to come back with a little mailbag action. We're going to have closing arguments. You better hold on to your seat because Miss Spilbor really works on these things.
I get into it.
She gets into it. So don't go away. We'll be right back on MK True Crime.
Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you can impact your family, friends, and your community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 340 academic programs as of September 2024, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.
Okay, welcome back. It's Arthur, Dave, and Jonna. We're going to get to these closing arguments, which I am prepared for, excited about, and your mail, which is going to be great. But first, let's find out what Megyn Kelly is doing. She's going on tour, and she's going to be in a neighborhood close to you very soon. I think I am going to be with her along with lovely Jonna. We're going to have our competing glassware. Is that what we're going to do, Jonna? Is that what we're going to do?
Sure.
I think you should bring 3 pairs and I'll bring 3 pairs and we can whack them. And that is on November the 5th, correct?
That is on November the 5th at the Westchester County Center, along with Tucker Carlson.
That's in between Brooklyn and Poughkeepsie, right?
Yep, sure is.
All right.
Halfway
so
point.
we're meeting halfway in the middle. I love it. What about you, Mr. Lawman, David Aronberg? Did you make the cut or what?
Yes, I did. I'll be at the Miami show on November 7th, and I'll be there at the beginning doing some true crime talk with Mark Eiglarsh.
Oh.
And then, so if you're down in Miami, come say hello. I will be there at the beginning. I don't think they'll have me on during the political talk with Eric Trump and Piers Morgan and other A-list celebs on the stage. I'm going to be sitting with everyone else.
Put you and Eiglarsh together, that equals an A-lister. So just wear a purple tie and choose happiness, as Mark Eiglarsh likes to tell people. Let's talk about some mail we got from Caroline. She writes to us, just wanted to let all of you know, I love the show and have been watching faithfully since its inception. I have not yet determined who my favorite contributor is yet, but I am enjoying the battle of the fashion glasses between Arthur and Jonna. I have a question for all of you. My son is graduating from Florida Atlantic University this December. He chose English as his major, knowing he wanted to pursue law school. He's not sure about what area of law he would like to focus on, but I'd like to hear the sage advice you would offer a potential law student about how to choose a law school, as well as how to choose what type of law to pursue. Ladies first, Jonna Spilbor.
All right. So that is a question that's for the ages. And I will say this, Caroline. First of all, thank you for your compliment. I do want to show you one thing. I have these, Caroline, in case you're keeping track. I also have these. Okay, I can't really wear these because these actually make my vision worse. But I will say this. I chose my law school, for example, by looking at a map. And I was in my parents' basement and I said, I am here. And I pointed to a little area in New York. And I said, what is the place farthest from here that I could go to law school? And it turned out to be San Diego. And that's how I chose where I was going to go. I had an English minor in college. So that's fine. He can go to law school and do what he wants. In terms of what type of law to practice, he should figure out why he wants to go to law school and follow that. Do you want to help people? Do you want to help criminals? Do you want to help people who are starting businesses? Do you want to help people buy houses? Do you want to help people get divorced? Find out what his why is, and that will guide him accordingly.
David, before I go to you, I'm going to do a little host privilege here because I could not disagree with Jonna more. And I'm being sincere about where to go to law school. I would do just the opposite. I would say, at least for the first 5 years or so of my late 20s, early 30s life, where do I want to live? Where do I want to be? And I want to go to law school somewhere around there. Why? Because the alumni association from the law school often can help you get on your feet, get a job or whatever. And so, I would stay in a geographic region where people who have graduated from there can help you. The second thing is internship at a DA's office, internship at a a white shoe law firm, internship at the city government office, which handles lawsuits. Dip your toe into a lot of different waters and see what fits and what you enjoy. David, take it away.
I agree with you, Art. I do think that if you are in Florida and he is at FAU, that maybe you want to stay in Florida, go to a Florida law school, because those contacts you have now are going to be your future clients, and the people you meet in law school will be your future colleagues and clients. And I think the connections you'll make if he is already in Florida, maybe you want to stay there. So as far as what area of the law, I think it's where he has a passion, but also where he thinks he can make some money. Because if there are huge loans piling up, you may want to start with a firm that pays well. Even if you don't love it at the beginning, you could always then find your passion. But you don't want to incur too much debt. And if you have all that debt, then being a public interest lawyer, until they have public interest law forgiveness, I think that could be something perhaps later on. And then finally, if and when he becomes a lawyer, and I'm very encouraged that he wants to pursue this very noble profession, just remember, the Florida lawman appellation has already been taken. It's trademarked by me.
Oh, David, since you have the microphone, why don't you take a minute and give us your closing argument?
Okay, thank you. I was half tongue-in-cheek on that one. But I do own the trademark. All right, so to get onto a serious topic, this is something that's it's been stuck in my craw, and that is, now that the war in Gaza is tenuously over, the ceasefire now crowd has been strangely silent. Where are you, Mark Ruffalo, Greta Thunberg, college students, AOC? Where are you? Haven't heard much jubilation from you. And I think we know why. That's because this crisis has exposed those who are hypocrites, haters, and ignoramuses. Hypocrites because there are many who claim to care about Palestinians, but they really didn't, because they're saying nothing now as innocent Palestinians are being slaughtered on the streets by Hamas in public executions. Where are you now, Mark Ruffalo? Where is your outrage? No Jews, no news. Haters, because for some of these individuals, they're motivated by animus towards the Jewish people. Greta Thunberg posted pictures on Instagram to denounce the suffering of Palestinian prisoners captured by Israel during the Gaza war. But whoops, the worst photo she posted was of a starving, tortured prisoner who is not Palestinian, but actually an Israeli hostage, Eviatar David. You remember, the one who was told to dig his own grave by Hamas. And when Thunberg was called out on it, did she apologize? Did she acknowledge the suffering of the Israeli hostages in Gaza? Nope, she ignored all of it, deleted the pic and said not a word. David's life apparently is not worth saving or even discussing. That's not ignorance, that's anti-Semitism. And finally, ignoramuses. Well, many well-heeled woke college kids on so-called elite campuses found their cause celeb in supporting a genocidal jihadist terrorist movement, Hamas, who would kill every last one of them if they saw them at a progressive music festival. Chickens for Colonel Sanders. So I conclude by saying that now that the war seems to be over, if all these folks want to continue to chant Free Palestine, it's a moral imperative for them that the slogan be followed by from Hamas.
David, thank you very much. Before I go to Jonna, because I am not going to follow her, along those same lines and being very brief, so I don't take any of Jonna's time away. Along those same lines, it seems like something has been achieved internationally that is a real milestone, and it's a real achievement that everyone should be proud of, everyone should be happy about. Sadly, it's half a planet Earth away. That peace that was found this weekend, we need that peace back here in our country. The Democrat-Republican war that's going on, and now people, they just said the most amount of military families are going to food pantries because both sides can't figure out how to put a budget together. We're just better than that, or we should be. We're not better than that because it's happening, but we should be better than that. So I appreciate this administration figuring out the peace on the other side of the world. But can everyone here realize you're not a Democrat, you're not a Republican, you're an American, and can we figure out a way to make the United States of America the best that it could possibly be? Jonna, take it away.
I just have to say one quick thing on that, Arthur, and to Dave. First of all, is it ignoramuses or ignorami? That's my question. And second, to Donald Trump, you don't need a Nobel Peace Prize when you have the actual peace. And I applaud him for the accomplishment as well. So with that, I will clear the slate. Here we go. The man who stands accused of killing Charlie Kirk just got permission to shed his orange jumpsuit for something less prison fashionable. Despite the fact that the publicly available evidence so far depicts Robinson trespassing his way onto a roof at a Turning Point USA event in Utah and damn near blowing Charlie's head off his shoulders in front of a massive audience, Robinson's attorneys are worried about his wardrobe. So concerned that the taxpayer-funded defense team filed a motion to ensure their client would be afforded the right to wear his own clothes to every court appearance. And they won. Let me tell you why it ain't gonna matter. First, a little legal history. Back in 1976, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled in a case entitled Estelle versus Williams that a defendant cannot be compelled to wear prison uniforms during a jury trial, as this violates the presumption of innocence and the right to a fair trial, yada, yada, yada. The idea back then, when the internet didn't exist, phones were still dumb, and cameras were only allowed outside the courtroom, was somewhat sound, I guess, since the first and only time a jury would lay eyes on a defendant was usually at trial. Still, this seems to be a little overly cautious crock of shit on account of, unless all 12 jurors are fresh off a lobotomy, it is highly unlikely that prison-issued apparel is going to move the needle from innocent to guilty. How would that go exactly? Would juror number 5 be all, geez, I was gonna acquit, but then I noticed this man isn't wearing any shoelaces, so I changed my mind? I mean, come on. We live in an age where evidence is often collected by amateurs and fed to the world in real time. Thanks to TikTok and TMZ, we see with our own eyes a CEO getting shot in the back on the way to the free croissants. We see with our own eyes a mother-in-law texting in code about murdering the father of her very own grandchildren. And we saw with our own eyes a bullet rip through Charlie Kirk's neck. In this case, the only clothes that count are the ones he had on his back the day he claimed to pull the trigger. For this reason, Tyler Robinson could be carried into court on a magic carpet by the cast of Glee while wearing a crown straight out of Liberace's closet and a cape borrowed from the estate of Elvis fucking Presley, and it won't make a bit of difference. No one gives a shit what Tyler Robinson wears to court because, hey, sometimes the clothes do not make the man, and this is one of those times.
Avid fashion advice from Jonna Spilbor here at MK True Crime. Thank you so much, Jonna. Your well thought out and delivered remarks are greatly appreciated. Dave, the whole world should be rejoicing about the peace in the Middle East because that's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm rejoicing that I got to spend time with you all today's version of MK True Crime. You could find us at MK True Crime at devilmaycaremedia.com, MK True Crime at devilmaycaremedia.com. Send us your story suggestions, your questions, your comments. Tell us how great Jonna was today. We'd love to hear it. And we'll see you next time. Have a great week. It's been a pleasure being with you.